have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank? They look great in person, and I just can't wait till next year we can pack it full of 25,000. Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was me and Rank. I mean, how do you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast.
And welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast, episode 62-ish. Give us a week or two. I'm not too sure what we're on anymore. I think I doubled up on some episodes, but we've got a treat for you today. We've got a trivia guru on our hands. We're going to do a little bit of trivia. We're going to talk a little bit about his journey. Welcome, Russell. How you doing?
What's up, everyone? I'm mesmerized by the intro. I'm still rocking to it. I was ready for like 2 more minutes of it.
That's the best intro in the game. I say it every time.
Yeah.
I wanted to do the old Pete. Pete put out that one there where it's like the rocking intro and then
hello.
Right.
Today on our podcast, we're going.
I think that'd be like a fantastic high
Never
energy.
been called out more than that moment. Yes.
But we got a great show for you. And as always, Tara, Major, you're here with us again. What do you guys got going on today?
I'm just hanging out, dude, trying to talk to Russell, see what's going on in his world.
Yeah.
Well, no one wants to talk to me, so we're going to get right into this trivia game here. I'm just going to do a little bit of the good old, whatchamacallit there.
No answer.
Sending out the tweets and trying to get some action going on that. We're going to kick this right off. We all got a bunch of questions here, so I'm just going to pull up my trusty Jeopardy board, which I'm not actually going to pull up on the screen because I don't actually have one. And looks like, Major, you got the first question.
Let me get my my announcer voice on. In 2002, Derek Carr was selected first overall by Houston. 2 other quarterbacks went in the first. Who were they?
And that's David Carr.
Oh, what'd I say?
Yeah.
Derek was 8, I think, at the time. He was there, though. Derek was there.
I got too much into my announcer voice.
2002. All right.
2002.
All right. I think is one Joey Harrington.
Yes, correct.
Woo! All right,
went third overall
50%.
to the Detroit Lions.
See now in like high school and stuff, as if I got like that 50%, it's like, all right, well, I'm playing with house money at this point. The other one, I know 2003 and 2004 had some good ones, but this was it Aaron Rodgers?
Wrong. No. One more guess. I'll give you one more, man.
One more.
You're going to have to go. I'll give you a hint. It was pick 32, I believe, to the Washington Football Club.
And it's not a big name.
Jason Campbell?
Patrick
It's a good
Ramsey.
guess.
Oh, I would have never. Okay. Yeah, no,
Number 32 to the Washington football team.
Yeah.
All right.
Ramsey.
All right. We're going to do a little, my question, we're going to do a little bit of a trivia of a what if scenario. So we're going to go to 2018 and we're going to play quarterback shuffle. And we're going to mix up all the quarterbacks taken in the first round to different teams. And you're going to tell us, predict the future. Tell us what's going to happen. So Cleveland, what if Cleveland, I'll run through all 5 of them.
I see where you're going with this. Okay.
So Cleveland takes Lamar Jackson. The Jets take Josh Allen. Buffalo takes Baker. Arizona takes Darnold. And then Baltimore takes Josh Rosen. What happens?
Well, wait, okay. So the Browns take Lamar
Browns
Jackson.
take Lamar Jackson. Yeah, we're suspending reality a little bit. Browns take Lamar Jackson.
Okay. Well, that run pass option with him and Nick Chubb would be pretty lethal. So I like that combination quite a bit. Where did Josh Allen go?
Josh Allen went to the Jets.
Jets.
Ooh, all right. Well, he's looking for a second team, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or is his career ruined? Is his career ruined at this point?
Yeah, man, that is such a tough situation over the last couple of years. I don't know if anybody gets out of that. I mean, he would have probably figured out something with his rushing ability, but yeah, I lean in liking Lamar there, and then Rosen. That seemed like that was destined to fail, regardless of how I felt about him out of UCLA. So X on that check for me. And Darnold was Buffalo,
Arizona, and then Baker to Buffalo.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Now, Darnold to Arizona, I could see that kind of working out for him. I mean, it's been kind of ugly there, but Kingsbury might have been able to actually figure out at least some fantasy value there. So, yeah, overall, Lamar's easily in the best spot, I think. And then where was Baker? Baker was in Buffalo?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that works out pretty well. I mean, he was always kind of a, quick passing guy, and they've protected Josh Allen well and built well around him. So that probably works out well as well. So weirdly, like, it kind of seems like even if we switch it around, the good ones, other than whoever goes to the Jets, would probably work out. And Josh Rosen would be on a practice squad somewhere. So, yeah.
Yes. Josh Rosen unaffected, and poor Josh Allen now seeing ghosts.
Yes, probably.
I think Jackson and Cleveland, I think maybe that coaching staff maybe would have blew that one. They probably would try to make him more of a traditional quarterback and not play into his best assets. But that's actually a pretty fun game. We need to do that more often.
Yeah,
I like it. All
right, next question for you. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that might make a staple of the show from now on.
Let's see. So, in 2000, which team set a record for first-round picks in one draft, and who were their picks?
2000.
That is a bad first round. I'm looking at the answer. The bad first guy you got.
2000. Oh boy. Well, I know Peter Warwick was picked fourth that year, but I don't. That might have been. So McNabb was like 98 or 99. Let's try to piece this together here. 2000. Man, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
I don't know either. So we both win. It was who was that?
So this was
the Giants, right? I mean the Jets.
Jets.
That was the Jets. The Jets had 4 first-round selections that year.
Wow.
And they had Pennington, Burchett, John Abrams,
Anthony Beck.
Oh, Sean Ellis. Yeah, John Abraham.
So that draft, more famously known as Cleveland blowing the first-round pick with Penn State defensive end Courtney Brown.
Yeah.
We talked about some busts throughout the history. We'll get a little bit more busts. We're going to talk about the Oakland Raiders and the Los Angeles Raiders picks. But, Washington, LeVar Arrington went number 2. You don't see 2 defensive players these days going at 1 and 2 on the draft board anymore. It's just it doesn't happen very often.
From the same team. That's amazing.
Right.
So you did have Peter Warwick to the Bengals at number 4. But, man, Peter Warwick, was he ever electric in college?
Yes.
That's one of those players.
Incredible.
I would have put everything I was worth on the line, said Peter Warwick was going to make it happen. But apparently he was a lot slower in the NFL than he was in college because
it's
like, what happened?
Injuries and all that. Doesn't matter how talented you are, if it kind of chips away at you and then you lose your first couple years and then it's like confidence gone and then crazy, man. So many talented guys over the years. So many. just gone.
Can you imagine a team having 4 first-round picks?
I mean, that's pretty impressive, though. The teams probably didn't value them as much back then. So I'd be curious how they acquired all of them, you know?
And it wasn't a bad draft because Chad Pennington was useful for the Jets for a while. He got into the playoffs and stuff. He was a serviceable quarterback. Anthony Beck was a tight end that provided a little bit, but not a whole heck of a lot. John Abram was a beast. He contributed quite a bit. And then
Sebastian Janikowski at 17, kicker.
Yeah.
That's a big
Yeah,
one.
Yeah, I remember that.
The one rule is
for that as well.
Fun fact, Sean Ellis is from my hometown.
Really?
Oh,
Played basketball
Wow.
with his little sister.
did you dunk
I
on
bet she
No,
was really athletic as well.
She was a lot more athletic than me.
So you mentioned Seabass being the Raiders selection, and it's kind of a fun game because anytime the Raiders made a selection, the next player right after turned into a fantastic Hall of Famer type player. We look at 2000. Let's see here. We had Jamarcus Russell. Megatron was the next pick. Robert Gallery was selected. Larry Fitzgerald was the next pick. Napoleon Harris was selected. Ed Reed was the next pick. So in 2005, the Oakland Raiders selected Fabian Washington. Who was the pick right after Fabian Washington?
You got this one. You got it.
I do?
Yeah.
You mentioned his name already.
I'm going to say a hint. You said it earlier.
Oh, man. Oh.
It rhymes with Smodgers.
Aaron Rodgers?
That is correct. Aaron Rodgers was the selection right after the Raiders had selected Fabian Washington, who was then later on traded as part of the package that brought Randy Moss over to the Raiders.
Wow. There you go.
Yes.
He said, there you go.
So later tonight, I will be curling up in the fetal position and reminiscing over Raiders draft pasts.
I didn't know that about their that's crazy that all these like Hall of Famers were selected like one pick.
It is incredibly painful. Like, pull it up, look at every draft and the very next pick. It's like an all-star Hall of Famer, fantastic, a player they could have used. It's not good. It brings up painful memories.
The early to mid 2000s for the Raiders was not a great time for sort of the strategy of drafting a one-tool player. The rocket arm or the
Darius Hayward-Bay
guy. Yep. Yeah. Jamarcus to Darius Hayward-Bay was supposed to be the combination to mint them into the 2010s. Yeah.
So anyone who's watching the show for the first time knows that one of our other co-hosts is a Louisiana boy there, Calvin. Huge LSU guy. And there's a reason why that I can't get behind any players from LSU. It's because Jamarcus Russell has ruined that for me for life. It doesn't matter how many good players come out of it. It's always going to be where Jamarcus Russell came from. And that was killer, man. That was killer.
Coming from a Raiders fan, a diehard Raiders fan.
Him and Dwayne Bowe were quite the combination. But once they got in the NFL, you were like, oh, Jamarcus Russell looked good because he had Dwayne Bowe. Gotcha.
So as we talk about this, we're going back in history. We'll see if this was how you do this. Can you tell us who the oldest player drafted between 2000 and 2001 was? Oldest player drafted in the first round.
No.
I'll give you a hint. It was Chris Winkie-esque. It wasn't Chris Winkie, but Chris Winkie-esque, and he was about 28 years old when he was drafted.
Wow.
Quarterback.
Yeah, I remember Brandon Whedon was like 27 when he got picked, but that was 20.
No, that was it.
No.
You got it.
You said 2000, right?
In between 2000 and 2001.
Yeah, I don't know.
Terry, off to you for the
right.
next question here.
Let's see. Next question. This could be a little tricky. school with the most first round selections from 2000 to 2001.
There's a tie
2000.
with two of them.
So we're talking the 2000 and 2001 draft class. Miami.
No, from the year 2000 to the year 2021.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can't.
Okay. Okay, that's
Maybe that's
why
what was confusing. Did
the
we keep
last
saying
one too.
2001?
I was like 2000 to 2001. Man, I vaguely remember those years, but okay. So it was 2000 to 2021. Most players drafted from a school.
In the first round.
Okay. Well, I'd say Alabama. No.
Alabama.
Ohio State.
Nope.
Think of early 2000 was where they were all coming from.
I mean, Miami,
Right state.
Florida State.
Florida.
I'm just gonna tell you the answer.
Florida.
Gotcha.
Tied with USC.
Oh,
with 22 players selected in the first round.
Wow.
And I think a lot of that was early 2000 to 2010 when they're producing players.
Right.
Not so much recently.
No.
Because my mind would have gone
turned in the last decade or two on those powerhouses from the early 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely would have been. My mind would have been going more towards Alabama and Ohio
Miami
State, just what we've seen recently, right? Miami had some fantastic teams that came out in the early 2000s, but they kind of dried up by about 2004. We're going to go back a little bit later here and talk 1998. I know 2000 was kind of the limit, but 1998, Randy Moss was selected with the 21st pick. Who was the one receiver that was taken before him?
I don't know.
Tennessee Oilers, great. I say Tennessee Oilers because this was a transition phase for him. Kevin Dyson was the one wide receiver selected before Randy Moss in the 1998 draft.
Nice. There you go.
All right. Now we have made up for our football content for the day, and now we can get into the stuff that people come to watch. We're going to kick it off. This is usually a question used for Calvin here. Say you're coming in the ninth inning to close a baseball game, or, Russell Clay is coming in and he's needs that pop music there to hit real quick as he enters the wrestling ring. What is that song for Russell Clay to get him going? What are you coming out to?
Oh, maybe a little Tame Impala. The less I know, the better.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to nod my head like I know what that is.
He's Australian. Yeah.
Oh,
he's like a one-man band. He plays every instrument and does the vocals. Pretty amazing. So, yeah, I like him.
Nice.
How do you know that? How do you know that guy? What's going on?
Can you give us a little taste of him? Give us spit a few lyrics out for us?
Oh boy.
No?
I'm not a karaoke guy. Yeah, sorry.
That's right. I think we've only got one person to give us something here so far to the whole course of the show. To give us a little bit. I think
right.
I can't remember who that was, but I think we've had one person. So
definitely,
that's okay. Yeah. We'll research it. All right. Next question. Let's dive into sports. So, tell us a little about the importance of sports for you growing up. What did you play and your favorite teams?
Sure. So I grew up in Massachusetts, but I grew up sort of a contrarian. I picked a bunch of random teams in first grade, which was the worst decision of my childhood because in being in Massachusetts and rooting against the home teams from, 1999 to 2015 was pretty brutal. But I liked the Miami Heat growing up. I liked the Atlanta Braves. And kind of went from there. I liked the St. Louis Rams at that time. So we had one good year and then just rooting for Steven Jackson as he got stuffed with his terrible teams over the years. But I played basketball growing up. That was my main sport. I played soccer for a little while, but didn't really take to it that much. And yeah, I was a free throw shooter. That was my main gig there. Wasn't great at defense, but I could shoot. But yeah, I always loved sports. It was something that kind of connected me. I think the team atmosphere and having a group of people that you had a common interest with from a young age was really important for me. And it was always something me and my dad would bond over. We'd do the picks in the Sunday paper, and that's kind of how fantasy football started before it started, where I'd want to get more right. And I didn't understand lines at that point. I wish I did. Then I probably would have beat him. But going through picking games and going through all that. And yeah, I just always loved sports. I always loved the stats. Like, I'd go to basketball camp and I'd want to be the one to have the trivia to stump everyone. So that would be kind of like, my way into sports. And then, around high school is where I found out it's like, yeah, you're probably not going pro. So stick to the fantasy realm instead of the actual court there. So that's definitely how sports has had a big impact on me throughout my life. Yeah.
So I just kind of touches. Oh, go ahead, Tara.
No, okay. I was just going to say, I like the little tidbit about the most of your points coming from free throws. I can identify with that. Like, I'm pretty sure 90% of mine did too.
Like technical fouls, they'd send me there. Yeah. Like, all the non-contact stuff. The coach gets mad or whatever. Like, I'm your guy. Defense.
It's a crucial role.
I used to do the thing where I knew the guy was going to beat me defensively. So I just turn around and pretend like I was boxing out, even, just like preemptively boxing out, because I knew he was getting around me. So, yeah.
Nice.
So you kind of mentioned there, touching base on the sports here, kind of growing up in Boston there, and they had some good teams while you were growing up. Do you remember, like, was your dad, I guess, was he a big Celtics, Patriots, Bruins fan? Like, what was there a bonding experience where you guys put on the game? And like, whenever I think of Boston sports, I think of the last movie we saw, Heat, with McCarthy and Sandra Bullock there. It's like hockey Jesus and dunking Jesus and the whole Massachusetts. I wish Bob was here right now, because he'd be making fun of me right now for all this. But what was that bonding experience with your father like? Did you guys watch the games together?
So he was actually originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Went over to Vietnam and then came back to live in Massachusetts. So he was a Cowboys fan. He was a huge Cowboys fan and Mavericks. So he was always, so we had that finals, Mavericks versus Heat in like 2006 or something. And we kind of had that battle, but yeah, it was mostly really fun. I would watch the Cowboys, and it was, a lot of fun to sort of have Sunday afternoons, be us sitting there eating and having fun. Yeah.
I love that, because being Canadian, we're huge into hockey. And I specifically took the opposite team of my old man back in the day. He was a huge Toronto Maple Leafs fan. So I automatically, just for sake of argument, became a huge Montreal Canadiens fan. And that's one of those teams that just stuck. It was just out of spite. Whatever you are, I'm going to pick the other team, and we're going to root against each other and see how it goes. It's one of probably the most memorable times ever, especially up here. We had like 2 fuzzy channels, we called. That was the kind of TV we had out here in the prairie. And every Saturday, Hockey Night in Canada would come on, and we'd go on there. And luckily for us, Montreal and Toronto would play a lot, so we had a lot of time to watch the games together. So I can totally relate to the whole Heat and Mavericks. That would have been a fun series to watch in that house.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of having some fun, I know you've been around a little bit here. DLF kind of gave you your start there in 2012. You did a little Pro Football Focus, little DraftKings playbook, Fantasy Pros, and now you're at fantasyguru.com there. If we got like Jeff Mans together, yourself, and some of the other crew from Fantasy Guru website, and we got you guys to Indianapolis for a combine, and you all got your matching onesies out there and your tight spandex, who's going to wow the scouts with their performance? Who's going to dominate these events?
Oh boy.
Who's your stiffest
well-
competition? Who's coming with you?
Well, definitely not me. I'm a patellar tendonitis guy now. So Russ gets his steps in every day, but he's not a runner anymore of any kind. So my 40 time's not going to be there. I know Jeff Manns was a pretty good athlete in high school, but he does joke about his back not being what it once was. So maybe Tyler Beaker. He's kind of sneaky, he used to play soccer, so he's probably got some of that endurance. So I think maybe Tyler Beaker, one of our staff writers over there, might be a sneaky good athlete. Yeah.
I know if we did this, like with our ViperCast, I would be in trouble. I sneeze and my back goes out. That's where I'm at right now in my career. And unfortunately, the combine doesn't have free throw shooting, so.
I know, right? Yeah, I'd be able to maybe manage it with some knee braces on, but
Oh man. So earlier we peppered you with all kind of trivia, because you're known as the trivia guy. How did that start for you? When did you become the trivia guy?
Yeah, so now the card market is really blasting off in 2021. As a kid, I was huge into baseball, basketball, and football cards. I would kind of just sit there all day. Instead of the screen, I was looking at the back of cards, looking at stats, and I always wanted to see where players were drafted, what colors they were, what pick they were. And it kind of just built from there. I never made any money from collecting cards, but I'd always buy the Beckett card books to see what things were worth. And spoiler alert, you buy those base sets of card, and there's 5 million of every card, not going to be worth a lot of money, but it kind of built from there. And then cards kind of lost their interest for me. But then I got into video games. I got into Madden, and it was still that trivia. I was trying to, connect who these players were, where they were from. I always liked the story of the player the most. That was my favorite part, where they came from, if they were a late round pick, how'd they get there and still emerge. And the early round guys, it's I loved Rivals and Scout and all those recruiting websites. I liked seeing where these guys came from, what parts of the country. And it just kept growing from there. And it's as the internet grew, there was just more and more and more information available. And it was all right. And then I found fantasy football when I was 13 or 14 with my older brother, got me in one of his leagues. And, that's when I found the passion, you could say, because you almost can put your knowledge, on the line. And back then it was more you had to do more research because there wasn't as much out there. So it was there were guys every year that were just on IR already that people were drafting, or not on there. They got cut and people were drafting them. So a little different nowadays, but back in 2004, that was a fun time. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned the cards, because for those who are younger, I guess the best way, the older cards had a whole story they would tell on the back, a whole paragraph devoted to this player's story, and you got a piece of bubble gum out of the deal. So as a card collector with these base sets, 2 points. Did you ever stick the cards in the spokes of your bike? And 2, did you ever like play little games with the cards? Like, you know, this guy's going to get boom, kind of with the cards. Anything like that?
Absolutely. Well, when in like 1998 to 2000, Pokemon was kind of blowing up. And so, you know, I would kind of take the Pokemon thing and match up all the players that I liked and have them on team. It was real crazy and nerdy. And thank God
It was you were like doing player comps.
Yeah. So I was like trying to make Pokemon out of the football and basketball cards, but yeah, I love the paragraphs that you're talking about, kind of like the Roto World blurbs before Roto World blurbs, or well, I guess it's not Roto World anymore, but yeah.
So keeping it on that fantasy track, what was your favorite league? Was it that what's that special home league for you? Is it that league with your brother that you guys were first in?
Oh yeah, 8-team, like 14 roster spots. It was like, it was a super fun league. It was him and all of his drinking buddies, and I was just like the little kid there. And I came in second my first year, and then my brother was like, "All right." And we ended up co-owning every year after that, because he was like, I'm not going to let you, actually win and me not win. So no, but yeah, those early years where me and him would go back with, I think that's the best part of fantasy football, like the talking back and forth, the strategy. I think co-owning a league, if you've never done that before, it's like such a fun experience if it's like someone you're friendly with. And we'd sit there and talk who we like, who we don't like, and he'd be like, we're picking him, and I'd be like, okay, I guess we're picking him.
Right, the big brother, what are you going to say, right?
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
just gotta follow this up. Is this league still going on? Like, you guys still co-own a team somewhere out there? And
So
two,
Cool.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the second part of the question would be, was fantasy football your first fantasy sport you got involved with?
Yes. So I have been, I wouldn't say excommunicated, but he does have a son, and his son has shifted into my position, as that needed to happen. So I love that the tradition is carrying on with the younger Clay, and he's getting into football, and obviously I love to see him getting into fantasy football. Now he would be someone who would sing for you. He's got his guitar, he does this little acoustic thing. So he's got me there already at 19, 20 years old. So but yeah, and it's still plugging along over there. So cool stuff.
Awesome. So at what point did you decide that you wanted to make fantasy sports more than just a hobby?
Well, it was a combination of things, but I was spending a lot of time on message boards in my later teen years, like 18, 19 was when I got into Dynasty. And at that point, Twitter wasn't really active yet, but I saw people, actually Chris Wessling, who passed away earlier this year, who, I looked up to and was one of my first fantasy role models, great writer. And he started out in the Football Guys Shark Pool, and he became like, a full-time writer. And I was like, being a self-centered, like 18-year-old kid, I'm like, that's going to be me. So I started posting a lot. I started making rankings, even though, these 30-year-old, what I've realized is as I go older, like, listening to 18, 19-year-old people now, you're like, okay, you have things to learn, my friend. But back then I thought I knew it all, and how that goes. But yeah, I would post my rankings, and I would post like tons of, my analysis and stuff like that. So kind of got into Dynasty with that. And then Twitter, it was like, I can put out my thoughts to the public, and there weren't that many people on there. I mean, in 2009, it was like, Evan Silva, Mike Clay, Matthew Berry, and Sigmund Bloom. I listened to a podcast, The Audible. I basically came up through Football Guys. All their stuff I was a big fan of. Cecil Lammy. He's now a Denver Broncos guy, but that was the Dynasty. And then Matt Waldman with all of his prospect stuff. So that's where I came from. And it was like, I saw these guys who kind of built themselves up, and it was like, well, I don't really have much going on here in terms of school, as I was joking about, was not really a great student, had real trouble like paying attention to things that that didn't click for me. And, not everyone's, some people can just blast through school, and I admire that so much, but I knew it was like not going to be for me. So I was like, I guess if I want to be a writer, this would be my only real avenue. And it was a way to like connect with college educated people, whereas my other route was like, I'm going to work at Walmart and kind of plug away there. So that was kind of my way to connect with the fantasy community.
I like how you mentioned you being that 18-year-old kind of pestering, so to speak, the 30-year-olds. And now we get it the other way now, where it's like these 18-year-olds are coming up. But man, I'm not going to lie. These 18, 19-year-olds coming up are a lot smarter than I was at 18 and 19 when it comes to fantasy sports, because everything's out there. You know what I mean? We've watched this industry grow from Bob Harris and his 1-800 number fax machine days to picking the stats out of the book, to Paul Charchian's working out of his apartment and putting out a newsletter, to the football guys, these draft message boards that you talk about. It's like ASL, you would type into every chat room so everyone knew how old you were exactly. And, now that I think about it, that wasn't very safe. You're telling people where you lived and how old you were. And this was like allowed. This was kind of like, oh, okay, this is right up. Okay, everything's good. Male, 14, medicine hat. Now you think about it, you're like, oh man, how did we survive growing up like this kind of stuff? Man, and this was dial-up too. This is a dial-up day. But just kind of talk about your journey from those message boards, that 18 and 19-year-old kid, to where you are now, and some of the changes that we've seen over that time, and compared to where you started to where you are now and the industry as a whole.
Sure. So, well, to kind of get into a little of my backstory, it was kind of a wild time for me. My 20s were not a great time. I'm very happy to be in my 30s now. I had, both my parents kind of pass away at an early age, and, I kind of got into the wrong crowds. And, my message nowadays is like, when things happen, get help, because I didn't, and I just watched my life just change. The people changed, the places changed, the things I was doing changed. And, part of my story is alcohol, and how, I really let it kind of take over my life for a while. But, fantasy wise, it was fun. Like, I like collecting followers. I was very, self-centered at the time, and I wanted to be heard. So it was like, I'll just put out these trivia tweets, keep putting out these trivia tweets. And at the time, I was like working from an iPhone and, kind of plugging away and putting the stats out there. And, it was a way for me to connect when I wasn't in a very good place. And I have to say, there were so many nice people in the fantasy community and landscape that, I could reach out to and talk about football with when other things weren't going great, that like, it meant so much to me, when I'd get a reply back from Evan Silva, or, Matthew Berry would like my tweet, or, that stuff matters to people. So, and it did matter to me. So it like kept me motivated. And then, I connected with Ryan McDowell, got started at DLF. And then, once you start getting paid for articles, no matter how much it was what, $10, $20 at that time, which is amazing for me. I was like, wow, someone's going to pay me. I'll pay you to write for your site, But I kind of, I just loved it. And I wasn't a great writer at that time, but I was willing to learn. And I just watched everyone like a hawk. Like, I watched the people I looked up to. One of the guys from the forums was named Adam Hairstead, and I always thought he was just such a brilliant guy. And I would watch him, I would read all of his stuff, and like, it was like, all right, what can I learn from this paragraph? How did he do this? And like, that's kind of how I learned to write, because school was, it was not much paying attention. So this was my school to kind of learn from the fantasy community. So I kind of, moved up from there. And then, in around 2013, 2014, DFS started to kick off, and it was like there was college football DFS, and I sort of recognized like, hey, I watch all this college football, and most people don't want to watch these MAC games at 8:30 at night on a Wednesday, and like I will do that, so I can provide a service. So that I kind of got into college football DFS, and that was my way to, Pro Football Focus, and then kind of connecting with people with DraftKings and doing all that. But it was just like I was willing to do whatever, and other people who like have actual careers like wouldn't want to probably do, the ditch digging Wednesday night 3-game college football slate. But it was like, that's my opportunity. I have to take it. So
Right.
that was really what kind of ended up, making it into a potential opportunity for to get out of my my retail position. Yeah.
I love the fact that you brought up that battle early on in your career with the alcoholism and all that kind of stuff, because I love it when you bring it up, because you're not the only one who's gone through this. You're not the only one going through this. And people need to understand, that's a beautiful place about Twitter is. I remember you posted, I think it was your tweet that went out there about these kids being 20 years old. What were you doing at 20 years old? And I think I replied, I'm like, I'd be dead in a ditch. I
Right.
don't know if I would make it to where I am now at 20 years old, where my career was going. It was very similar to your story there. And myself, like when you say it, I remember my past when you bring it up. And anyone who's watching this show should know that whatever you're battling, you're not alone in that battle. There's people that have been through that and are willing to help. And that's the good thing about Twitter. Twitter can be a dangerous place too. Don't kid yourselves.
Yes.
But if you
Very.
surround yourself
Yeah.
with the right people, you can get through just about anything with some of these people on Twitter. And you mentioned some of these names, and they're all great people, and you can slide in those DMs. So I want to make sure if anyone who's watching this is going through something, some kind of battle of anything, make sure to reach out, make sure to find that help, because we've been there. There's someone who's been in your shoes before, and there's someone who's probably too afraid to speak out about it yet. They're maybe ashamed of it or whatever it is, but they want to hear it because they're living it themselves. So Russell, thanks for bringing that up there. Appreciate
Sure.
that.
Yeah. And I'll just add that I thought I was so unique with my situation, and what you realize is like, it's not unique at all. Like I was not the first person to go through any of that, which is, it's nice to know that. And, kind of going a little further, I did get a full-time position in 2015. And I kind of thought that day it was like I was working towards that for like 5 years. It was like, once I get full-time, all my problems will be gone. My life will be amazing. Everything will be fixed. And it was like, it was a harsh reality to realize, oh, this changes very little. This is another job, and I have to fix my life. So, I would say, for those kind of looking for a platform and looking for, connection, I would say don't necessarily connect your platform to who you are, and how that is not going to fix anything that you're sort of dealing with outside of the fantasy or writing space. That would be my advice there.
Nice. I mean, that's some heavy stuff there, guys, and very important.
I know. Sorry, let's shift back.
I don't even know how to. I don't know
good.
how to follow that, but I'm going to try to pivot a little bit. And I don't want to step on any toes or anything, but that needed to be said. Let's talk about some of your more memorable interviews or podcasts. What stands out to you? Like who was it, and what was so unique about this interview or podcast?
Yeah, I would say getting on the radio for the first time on Sirius was pretty intense. I was so nervous. And then what you don't realize about radio before you've done it is you're speaking for like 3 minutes and then you're gone. And the 10,000 things you want to say, it's like you get to say 2 of those and then you're done. But yeah, doing that and, I would say, getting connected with people who I looked up to, like Chris Wessling or, Evan Silva, guys like that, where, I looked up to them, and to get to talk to them and chop it up was always really cool. And then I ended up getting on a few, podcasts. That was kind of my thing. It was like, I'm a listener. I'm a fan of fantasy. So when it was like I started getting on some of the podcasts I was a fan of, that was a real honor for me. Yeah.
Nice. If you were, I know you talked a bit about like almost how fantasy football kind of almost saved your life a bit and put you on the right path with school and dealing with your, demons and all that good stuff. Like, what would you be doing if you weren't doing fantasy football? Like, if you weren't like, writing and doing all this good stuff?
Probably in some type of counseling or something like that at this point. Prior to that, I was sort of all around. I worked construction for a little while. I worked retail for a little while. It was, a mishmash of things, but I would say probably some type of, counseling thing like that now. Yeah.
Along those lines, like what was your worst job you ever did? What's that job that you absolutely hated? And how long did you last?
Okay. All right. So I have number one was not, I was just so out of shape and like probably hungover, but I did pool installation. And I was just so out of shape, dude. It was like I was just gassed after the first like 20, 30 minutes. And, my brother is really in shape guy. And it was just like the job wasn't necessarily bad. I was just not fit for it. I learned very quickly. My dad did concrete as well. So it was like I learned very quickly, like that was not going to be my, living for the rest of my life. I respect them very much, but I was not built for, those long summer days. But the worst job I had was at a candle factory. I was in the assembly line for a little while, and that was tough times, man. I was like trying to get out of there as soon as I got in, but I also worked at a bank.
How do you get these jobs? Like, how did your resume look? Like, what does your resume even look like? It's like
there wasn't one, bro. There wasn't one. Listen, there wasn't one. I worked at a bank.
He was diversified.
Yeah. Yeah, diversifying my my job portfolio. But they were all kind of just side jobs till the fantasy thing hit, was how I was thinking about it. I was just kind of doing things to pay the rent and, get through it till, so I would work and then I would put like, 5, 6, 8 hours into fantasy off work. So it was like I was just grinding those years.
Nice.
I love that because we all had that job. I was like a brick press operator back in the day.
Yeah, there you go.
I had someone either getting married or dying every other weekend. You know what I'm saying? I was looking for a way to get out of that. I was kind of doing my Google search, which I kind of do here, and two things came up. One, I was unaware that you were a child star in Transformers, so that was pretty interesting. Russell Clay was nice. Denny Clay's son. And two, I came across this weird website. I think it's clear.com, and it talks about influencers. And you kind of mentioned maybe you were being counseling, but maybe an influencer. You come in here at number 8 amongst fantasy influencers in the age 13 demographic. Wow. So congratulations.
What? What is this website?
Man, there you go.
Oh, let's see here.
I got to shift down my trivia range here.
Let's see here. Let's see if I can pull this up.
Yeah, influencers means it's time to go get those brand deals, those big brand deals.
Yeah.
So we got find top 10 fantasy football influencers. We got Maddock there. We got Ratcliffe. We got Schaff. We got some guy named Luke, Grant, Loza, Chris, And then there's at number 8, just above Cecil.
Age 13. I mean,
that is a fantastic demographic.
That must be all the
shit.
video game references.
That's hilarious.
This is the kind of information and fact checking that we do.
Wow.
Pointless.
Wow.
Do.
I wasn't gonna point it out. All right. Back to fantasy sports. So what have you learned through fantasy sports? You've had your hand in a few things. What are some of the key takeaways that you've had over your career?
That the business is much different than I thought it was, before I got into it. I was always just a content guy trying to make the best content. I followed people who were doing content, and it's like, that is not the base of the industry. The industry, you have to make money. And I did not understand that early in my career. It was all about, giving everyone all the work I did for free and kind of just plugging away there. And it's like the sites kind of that are profitable and stuff like that. It's like a whole, I start to learn that I get what Skip Bayless is doing. I get what Stephen A. Smith's doing, and then you kind of look at some of the radio folks and people want, entertainment and being the guy who's bringing up the good points and not arguing all the time is not necessarily going to get you that enormous platform. So it's kind of like, I'm not shifting away from what I am as a person, but I also I get the game now is what I would say, why people are doing what they're doing. I understand people's intentions behind the entertainment now is what I would say, just how things work. I get it now. I get Jim Rome going at Jim Everett. I get it all now,
That's still one of the best rants ever.
Yeah.
Seriously. Classic. We all know relationships are very important in any industry that you're in. Can you speak about some of the people that helped you along the way? I mean, you already mentioned a few of them, but if you want to, you could rename those people and give a little insight on each one.
Sure. Well, it's been fun to watch everyone grow over the last decade. I mean, I mentioned Ryan McDowell early on, but Rich Rebar, I was in leagues with him for a while. Scott Barrett. I knew, he far has surpassed me in platform now, but I remember him when he had 1,000 followers, and watching him kind of go and do his thing has been awesome. Gosh, there's been so many. I mean, Pete Overzet, the whole DFS industry, I kind of watched it all, grow before my eyes. My site, Graham Barfield was kind of, one of the people that kind of helped me into my position now. And always appreciate him. Joe Dolan, Tom Browley, John Hansen. I mean, that guy's been around since the 90s. So shout out to all of them. Yeah.
Awesome.
So we're gonna have to talk a little bit behind the scenes after. We got Scott Barrett coming on the show tomorrow night, so we're gonna have to get a little bit of dirt on him before we talk to him there. A little bit something we can surprise him with, like your influencer stuff.
Cool.
So in terms of the off season, I know where maybe things are about to ramp up now that we're in draft week, and things might be getting a little interesting. But what do you have in store for the off season? What do you have going on?
Oh, well, over at Fantasy Guru, we're going to be doing a live stream day 1 and 2. It's going to be free. So definitely come hang out with us over at Fantasy Guru. We're going to be, my analysis, Armando Marsal, Tyler Beaker, and Jeff Mann's going to be popping in back and forth from Sirius. And yeah, we're going to run through the draft. It was a lot of fun last year. Should be a lot of fun again. We have our draft guide going on where we write prospect profiles, mock drafts, kind of just going through everything you need to know for your, dynasty drafts, rookie drafts, all that good stuff.
Awesome.
Nice.
So
can you Oh,
Hang
go
on,
ahead,
Major,
go
just one
ahead.
second here. While we're talking about that, you kind of do a little bit of the breakout finder as well, do you not?
So I to take my full-time position, I had to disconnect from my friends over at Breakout Finder. But yes, I did begin that site with Nate Liss. I really, really love, what's going on over there. They have a really great prospect model that, I was a part of making. So definitely endorse them over there. Even though, I'm no longer officially connected, I'm really proud of that product over there. So shout out to him and Ryan and all the kids they got doing content over there.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that breakout finder was kind of that metric that was used, like a teammate score is kind of factoring in there. And they've got a few different things they've all put in there, and that you helped develop that from the very beginning. So, and we're talking about draft season, we're talking about draft guides. This is just another one of those tools that people can use.
Totally. Yeah. Well, it kind of incorporates what players were on the teams that these players played on. So like, the Alabama wide receivers over the last couple years couldn't have been a better example of why we made that. But whenever you've played on a team, whether it was first grade, like rec, or, travel teams or college or pro, it's like, if you have the amount of good players you have shifts and distributes the production. So if you're in high school and you have two, first team All-Americans on your team, like they're going to steal production from each other, or at the very least steal from everybody else. So it's like when Alabama has 4 or 5 first round picks on their team, there's only so many passes to go around in a game. And there was no real metric to like at least account for that. I'm not saying it's the most important thing, but I do think it needs to be, adjusted for.
Yeah, and like hearing your story has really been a pleasure, that you're coming from a kid who didn't really do school. Like school's not for everyone, and dealing with demons, like we all have them, and overcoming all that stuff, bouncing around all these different jobs. Can you give some advice on people who might be going through that type of stuff, bouncing around different jobs? School might not be a thing for them. Like you said in the beginning, writing wasn't your thing at the beginning, but you fell into it. So can you give some advice to those of us trying to make it that's probably not coming from a traditional like education background or a perfect situation?
Well, what I would say is that resentment is never an answer. Resentment and jealousy is something I dealt with, and it doesn't help you. Getting jealous of someone writing a good article or getting praise or getting a new job, it's like that does not help you at all. So I would say stay positive, stay optimistic. And this sounds super cheesy, but at 31 years old, I've come to learn like it's just like you're either pushing in one direction or the other. And, whether things work out or not, it's like at this point, when I was kind of out of the industry, my latest time in like 2016, 2017, it was like, I'm okay. If it doesn't work out, then I'll find something and life's going to move on and I'm going to be okay. So I think that's what I would say, connect with yourself. And if things don't work out, that's not anything bad on you. It's just like, you'll find something different and it'll eventually work out. And I know if you're 20 years old or 25, like that sounds like the worst advice ever. And you're like, shut up, I'm going to get this job and nothing else matters. But, I don't know. And I've heard a lot of other people say this as well. Life kind of figures itself out. So don't be so hard on yourself.
I love that because, I think it kind of ties back into what you were saying about the fantasy football community. Being a place where everyone is, can be very uplifting and positive and supportive of each other versus trying to be extremely competitive. So I think, that advice just kind of ties in so perfectly with that.
The number one thing with lasting in the industry that I've seen is the people that are constantly criticizing others do not do not make it long term. Even if they're smart, even if they're brilliant, like you're just going to burn so many bridges that I think you can disagree with people, but like support the people you enjoy. That's also what I would say, because they appreciate that. They're people too. And if you have someone commenting underneath your article saying, hey, great job, man, like you might get a follow out of that, or they might start interacting with you more. So yeah, I would say optimism and being kind, and finding people you connect with.
I know you kind of mentioned this already here. You got your guys' draft show coming up on Thursday, Friday. What else do you guys got going on at fantasyguru.com outside of the magazine? What do you guys got planned going forward here? Where can people find you, Russell?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Russell J. Clay. Every week we have live streams. I plug away on those. Once we get into the fantasy season, that's kind of our main thing. We provide, heavy resources for season long and, high stakes, DFS, all that good stuff. So we also have a DFS website, elitefantasy.com, and then we have a sports betting site, elitesportsbetting.com. So, plenty of avenues, plenty of amazing content creators over there as well that, I look for information on other sports. Like you mentioned hockey earlier, or, we even have a horse racing guy. So it's fun to check out all the stuff over there. Yeah.
Well, that basically takes us up to our 1 hour kind of show for this week. Russell, thanks for coming on here. Just remember out there, always try to walk a mile in someone else's shoe, because not all journeys are the same. And regardless of where you come from, we can all get to the same place at some point. It just might take some of us a little bit longer with the obstacles that are in front of us. So make sure you reach out. If you have any concerns out there, there's more than enough people willing to help you out along the way. For Tara, for Major, for Russell, and for myself, this is the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast, and we're gone.